talk to everybody and say hello. So I'm Dr. Kim Harris, and I'm a proud and happy and member of the Church at Ocean Park. I'm so glad to welcome you. We're going to get started with some singing. So everyone, please put yourselves on mute and take a good stretch. Mhm. And hope that you are having a wonderful weekend and have had safe travel, even if you had to be in lots of traffic and airports and things. But we're going to start off with a song by a friend of mine.
1, 2, 3.
Named Ruth Pelham. Ruth Pelham. And basically, it is a call and response song. And so, the words I say, you can sing back there in your Zoom room. And you can even make up your own words. So this is how the chorus goes. We're all family. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. All right, so let's try that. Here we go. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. Now, if you want to add a little something, here's what you can do. Make your hands look like two fish like this, but it's a letter F for its family. Okay, for the letter F, family, and then under one sky. So it's we're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family. One sky, do it again. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're people. We're people. We're animals. We're animals. We're flowers. We're flowers. And birds in flight. And birds in flight. Oh, we're people, we're people, we're animals, we're animals, we're flowers, and birds in flight, and birds in flight. Here we go. We're all a family under one sky, family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky, family under one sky. Do it again. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. Family under one sky. All right, so we can think of the various different families that we're celebrating today with our wonderful Gloria, and it's so great to see Gloria. So we can say, we're Tonva, we're Apache, we're Seminole, and Cherokee, we're Abenaki, and Mashpee, and Iroquois, Now let's see, one more. And Wampanoag, Here we go. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. All a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. We're migrants. And refugees. We're indigenous. And African American too. We're Russian. And Irish. And Italian. And Nigerian. Here we go. We're all a family under one sky. family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky. Family under one sky. Yes, this is a wonderful song. Ruth Pelham writes these great songs. So next time we do it, be thinking. Have people put it in the chat next time we do it. Here we go. Oh, we're people, we're animals, we're flowers, and birds in flight, We're people, we're animals, we're flowers, and birds in flight. Last time. All a family under one sky, family under one sky. We're all a family under one sky, family under one sky. Here we go. We're all a family under one sky, family under one sky. Last time. We're all a family under one sky, family under one sky. All right, everybody. Woo, shake out in Ocean Park. We are a wonderful, caring, interfaith community. We celebrate diversities. We treat ourselves and others with respect. We are still learning. We are still growing, and we embrace each other as we continue to learn and grow. Our gatherings support and educate and challenge us in our relationships to ourselves, to others, and to the world. We love creative expression, singing at every opportunity, and working for social justice. We empower children and youth and encourage lively discussion, especially in our wonderful community sharing. And we're interfaith, so you are welcome. If you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, if you're Hindu or Buddhist, Wiccan, or atheist, if you celebrate a tradition in the world, you are welcome. If you are vaccinated, unvaccinated, have the booster, or are waiting to see what's going to happen with the new variant, you are welcome. You are welcome if you are a citizen, if you are a migrant, if you're undocumented or a refugee. And we extend a special invitation to those who are single or married, divorced, gay, transgender, lots of resources in abundance, or if you are dealing with poverty, you are welcome. Special invitation to crying newborns, people that are just browsing or just woke up or just getting out of jail. And we don't care if you are more religious than the Pope or if you haven't been to a worship gathering since your niece's bat mitzvah. And we're so happy to have people who are over 60 but not grown up yet, to teenagers and those who are growing up too fast. Dealing with addictions. We invite you if you're having problems or if you've had a tough weekend, because sometimes that happens around holiday settings. You're welcome if you're down in the dumps, if you don't like organized religion, or if this is just the first of about 4 different kinds of gatherings you're going to go to today. You are welcome. If you are inked or pierced or both, you are welcome. And you're especially welcome if you could use a prayer right now. We invite tourists and seekers, doubters, bleeding hearts, and you. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park. One of the ways that we center ourselves each week is that together we chant a chant from Thich Nhat Hanh, and the words say, I have arrived, I am home in the now. So please take a good deep breath and let's center ourselves and chant together. I have arrived, I am home in the here and in the now. I have arrived,
I'm Janet Gollery McKithen. I'm the minister of the church in Ocean Park, and I also welcome you. Because we are from diverse backgrounds, you might hear something that you disagree with, and that's okay because we're trying to widen our perspectives. If you disagree with something, you can either mention it in the community sharing, or if you agree with it, you can mention it. Or you can write it in the chat, and if you'd like more discussion, then we're able to have during community sharing on a Sunday morning. Put that in the chat too, and we can have an extra conversation if you like. So welcome to the church in Ocean Park. I know some people probably a little too much food this weekend, and some people have had a little too little food this weekend. So we're all over the place, and some people had too much people, some people had not enough folks. So you're welcome either way, and we hold all of that in community. And this morning is very exciting because we have Gloria Liggett back, but also in the Christian calendar of Advent. So we'll be lighting an Advent candle, taking a collective moment to focus on the new year and the newness of the season. But during this time of Advent, leading up to Christmas in the Christian calendar, we'll also be celebrating Hanukkah, Bodhi Day, and the solstice, and then after Christmas, Kwanzaa. So it's a rich time, December, with all of this. Many of us have celebrated Indigenous Peoples Day this past Thursday, but if you didn't get a chance, we're going to celebrate it this morning with Gloria Liggett. Some of you know her from a long time ago, and some of you are just meeting her. Gloria is a Tongva from San Gabriel Valley. She now lives in Santa Barbara and is an active member of the Chumash and American Indian Health and Services Native communities. She works closely with the communities as an elder or mentor. As a founding member of Ethnic Studies, she now works with the Santa Barbara Concerns for Racial Justice. She's also a member of the Live Oak Unitarian Universalist Congregation and a member of their Social Justice Committee and active in their religious education program. She's a retired educator and has taught in all grades from 1st to 12th. As an adjunct faculty member, she taught art and culture and education at Antioch University in Santa Barbara. In Los Angeles, she taught in South Central and at the USC Performing and Visual Arts School. In 1996, the LA County Bravo Award honored Gloria for her use of the arts to enhance student achievement and foster self-esteem, teamwork, and cross-cultural communication and understanding. Before she moved to Santa Barbara, Gloria was very active in the church in Ocean Park. She and her boys were active in the religious education program and the family camping trips and many, many other activities, and many of you helped to raise her boys. We're glad no matter what. Welcome back, Gloria Liggett. She's going to start us off with a land acknowledgement.
There. It's always good to be with you. And doing that chant made me smile because I do feel like I'm always finally home when I'm with you. So Church in Ocean Park is located on Indigenous land, and recognizing the traditional custodians of the land, we pay respect to the Tongva people, the history and culture of the community, and all Native Americans as America's first people. We pay respect to the Tongva elders past, present, and future, for they hold the memories, the traditions, and the culture of this area, which has become a place of learning for people from all over the world. We acknowledge and appreciate the Tongva people who are alive to continue to help steward this land that we all love.
Thank you very much, Gloria. So during the time 4 Sundays of Advent leading up to Christmas in the Christian calendar, we'll be lighting a candle each Sunday. And if you'd like to create an Advent wreath, and you can in your home, but you don't actually need candles or a wreath. You can use paper of 4 different colors or a different flower every Sunday. It's up to you. We all work with what we have. I have here a shell, a frog, different things. You can make it with grass outside of your house and bring it in and do whatever you'd like to do. But I do have candles this morning. This Sunday we light the candle of hope. Isaiah 40 says, in the wilderness, a voice of one calling, in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, shall be raised up, and every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all people will see it together. We light this first candle as a sign of our hope. Hope that God, hope that the sacred, the holy can lead us, can be here with us, even in the mess of our world. Hope that we are still seen, even though we feel lost in the rubble. Let the light be the guide that brings us to Emmanuel once more. Oh, come, Emmanuel. We wait in hope. Thank you, Louise. Thank you. And now we have a chance to hear from Gloria. She's going to share with us.
It's so good to be with you. These days, I spoke before about being Indigenous, and it's always been a big part of my life. But in many different ways. I've spoken. We would get together at my grandmother's house, and all the cousins were there. My dad and mother were divorced, and he would come and pick me up on weekends, and we would go to my grandmother's house, and they all did things that I now know were quite native, but it was just the way I grew up. But we were not allowed to speak Spanish. We were, because that's how that our elders were teased so much in school. And there was an older woman that was a great grandmother who didn't speak Spanish. We could understand Spanish, all the cousins, but she spoke another language, and we thought she was so cool because she was very old. They carried her out on a chair and put her on the front porch, and she smoked a corncob pipe, so she was just the coolest. But as we left, they gathered us all together, and they said, now, no matter what, never tell anyone you're Indian. Certainly put a different feeling in each of us about being Native. So it wasn't until I was almost in my 40s before I was able to say out loud that I'm Native, although I lived the traditions the whole time. I couldn't talk about it. And it wasn't until I realized it was something that was okay to talk about. So it was a strange way of growing up. But it's so funny how our world has changed, and how our world, things that we accept now that we never did, things we're comfortable with now that we weren't. But one of the things that I'm afraid never changes in the schools, as at this time of year, they dress the children up as little pilgrims and little Indians. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they're still doing it. And as we think back on Thanksgiving, we realize that isn't the true story at all. The way we celebrate our Thanksgiving isn't the true Thanksgiving at all. The story of Thanksgiving is a story of mourning for Native people. When the pilgrims came over, when they came over to Plymouth Colony, there had been many boats from Europe there before, but when they came, they pulled in, they fished and they hunted, and they tricked some of the men into coming onto their boats to show them things, and then they kidnapped them. Many Native people were kidnapped and brought over to England. They were scary people, and so the natives, of course, when the pilgrims came, when they were not going to go to those boats. And in fact, right where the boats were going to be landing, there was a deserted village that everyone had died in the village of a strange disease the year before. And these people that came, they watched them from the bushes, watched them go into the middens and take things, and go into burials and take things off the bodies. And it was scary to them. So they didn't approach the pilgrims at all that first year. And it's very ironic. One of the first people that finally did speak to them was a man who had been kidnapped by them. He had been kidnapped and taken to England, and was in England for Squanto, was in England for over 5 years and learned English. And so eventually he did get to speak to them, and they made an agreement that it was okay if he came in and was part of them, of course, because he was helping them, and that they wouldn't hurt him and he wouldn't hurt them. So finally, the Native people, English people, because they told them about growing things. They told them how to plant what we call the Three Sisters, We still plant the corn and the squash, and corn and squash and beans. And they taught them all ways of living there in this new world. And then the Thanksgiving that we call the first Thanksgiving didn't start being called the first Thanksgiving until about the 1870, around there, when a writer started writing about the first Thanksgiving. People did celebrate, the families celebrated, the English families did do feasting and gathering of families together, but it wasn't called a Thanksgiving like that. And the Native people also, that's a time when we, in the fall, when we celebrate the harvest and do ceremony and dancing and bringing family together. So on where they were invited to this English feast of gathering, but when they came, there were between 60 to 90 people, and it was like, oops, not enough food. So the Native people went out and fished and hunted and brought food back, and they did feast together for 3 or 4 days, and it was a peaceful feast, but it certainly wasn't the first Thanksgiving. And it wasn't until much later, around 1860, that Lincoln finally declared that last Thursday in November a Thanksgiving time. And it wasn't then again until 1939 that FDR made it official. And that's how we were celebrating Thanksgiving. So many of the stories we hear aren't true, but we still celebrate Thanksgiving, and we love doing that. There's always been, there still are things that the way Native people are, and things are still happening within our community. It's been very funny with this Black Lives Matter. As that all happened, all of a sudden we started more in this country talking about other cultures and talking about Black people and talking about Native people and Asian people and people who aren't white. And it became an okay thing. But what happened was, as we started to talk to all these different cultural groups, we discovered the sad stories. And we discovered that our history isn't a beautiful one in any of these cultures. With the Black people, there was slavery. We don't think about the Native people, but the Native people were plagued. Even the California Indians were enslaved. The Asian people were enslaved. It was something that started happening when the white people came. Well, how did they take over the land? Well, Native people don't believe that we own the land. You can't own land. It's the land we take care of, but it's not our land to give away. And when they tell the story of selling New York, well, they weren't selling New York. They were giving them a gift to come through the land, not to sell the land, because that doesn't make any sense. Things are still happening that don't make much sense in our the Native world these days. One of the things that's happening that's good is what I did a land acknowledgement, and where Native people are very eager to have people do a land acknowledgement to acknowledge that they're stolen lands, especially in some of the groups that I work with at the universities, to know that those we call them land grant colleges, because the government actually took the land grant, the Native, and we're still suffering from that. But all of a sudden, some land is being given back, and we're taking some land back. There was just a huge thing in Santa Barbara that was wonderful. The San Marcos foothills were the last open grasslands, and some young people decided they're young people who work a lot with plants, and they had always gone up there and worked on plants and gathered plants for those elders. They'd bring them back, and we would process them, and they decided, you can't take our land. And they set up a vigil, and for 2 weeks they stayed on this land. The land all of a sudden was going to be sold for thousands and thousands of dollars for 20 big homes. And we said, no, you've pushed us and pushed us, and the young ones said no. And they stayed there. I went up and spent some time with them at first, and then there was a horrible incident, and came and said, you can't be here. And they arrested 4 of our young girls, and the girls were treated and in chains, literally chained their hands together and took them off to jail. And after that, of course, it just really made the rest of us come out. And I spent every other afternoon and evening with those young people to see that that wasn't going to happen again. And so we won, and they saved the land, and they're not going to build the homes. And so that was good. And we're doing that now on another stretch of land. It takes people coming together, which has not always been easy with Native people and continues not to be. There's always disagreements about something, it seems like. And one of the things that's been happening with the onset of online stuff being online is that there's been questions about, well, are you really Indian? How are you? Well, who says so? Who says that? The government says that. And they love to say it now because, of course, as the years go by, that land, that blood quantum is going to get smaller and smaller, and they'll be able to get rid of us. But Native people say, doesn't have anything to do with that. You can't tell us how much Indian we are. That's a government thing. And we, all of a sudden these days, we're saying, we're not accepting that. Sorry, we're not accepting that. And then there's the issue, the same sort of disagreeable thing that we've put up with, we never think about. And then all of a sudden now with the mascots, I was very involved in Carpinteria. They have they're called the Warriors. And I spent many an evening several years ago on a committee fighting against this. One of the most amazing things, one night, the people said, well, it's the Warriors. And I said, I have no problem with your calling yourselves Warriors, but why? It's not us. We're not mascots. Why don't I know if you're going to have warriors, why don't you have the Marines? They're warriors. And one man actually said, oh, that would not, oh, no, that wouldn't be honorable. I said, but it's okay to call natives, warriors, but not the Marines. And I was just like, I can't stand this. And then it got so bad that we have to have police escorts out of the meetings to our cars. That's how upset the people got. We finally got rid of most of the awful drawings and things like that, but they're still called mascots. And I see all over the United States now, slowly, people are getting rid of that. Cultures aren't mascots. There's so many things like that aren't, but as we're standing up for things, we're able to stop that. So hopefully someday we won't have mascots, and we will be able to keep the land that for everyone to use, not just somebody can't take all the land. It's like if there's any land left, you have to build a big house on it for a rich white person. That doesn't work that way. It can't work that way anymore. But the way that what's going to all be saved, I think, at this point, is with the young ones. That's where I'm seeing the movement in our Black community, in our Asian community, in our Native community, the Latinx community here in Santa Barbara. Our young ones are speaking out. They make me so proud of them. And many of them here in Santa Barbara, I knew when they were little people, when I was teaching them in kindergarten. And now they're standing up and saying, no, this is how it needs to be. This is how it needs to be. So I don't know what's going to happen to this world. Everything's so bad. It's so bad. But I think that we need to stop and look to the young ones and say, nope, you're going to help us. You're going to save us. And I think that's the only way that there are going to be changes, if we step back and let the youngsters take care of us, because they're the ones who really seem to know how to be together and how to be community and how to be family. They have no problem with that. So I think when we feel like, oh, these days are horrible, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? we need to just breathe a sigh of relief and say, yeah. And I know as an elder, I can say, okay, I'm done. It's time for the young ones to take over. And I think that eventually things will be okay as long as we keep loving them and supporting them. So thank you.
Wow, that was wonderful to hear you, and so interesting and inspiring. Thank you so much, Gloria. Great to see you. I've known you for a long, long
A
time.
long time.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
So now I want to lift up a song and lift up the name of Jim Pepper. He was of Kaw and Creek heritage. He was a jazz saxophonist, and he was encouraged to bring his native culture into his music. And he had lots of albums. He was a jazz saxophonist, but fusion. And he did this song that became a hit, actually, by another group. And so some of you may recognize this. I put the words in. It's called Witchy Tie Tie. And the words are Witchy Tie Tie Gimera, Oranika, Oranika, Hey Ne, No Why. So we're going to just sing this. It's a chant, and there's some English words that go along with it too, that he sang also. Witchy Tie Tie Kimora, Wanika, Wanika, Hey Ne, No Why. Tai tai kimora wanika oranika hene no ai. Uchi tai tai kimora oranika oranika hene no ai. Tai tai kimora oranika oranika hene no ai. Water spirit feeling spring around my head, makes me feel glad that I'm not dead. Water spirit springing feeling around my head, makes me feel glad that I'm not dead. Uchi tai tai kimora wanika wanika hene no ai. Uchi tai tai kimora oranika oranika hene no ai. Uchi tai tai kimora oranika hene no ai. Uchi tai tai kimera oranika oranika hene no ai. Water spirit feeling springing around my head, makes me feel glad that I'm not dead. Water spirit feeling springing around my head, makes me feel glad that I'm not dead. Witchy tai tai kimura oranika oranika hene no ai. Witchy tai tai kimera oranika oranika hene no ai. Witchy tai tai kimura oranika oranika hene no ai. I don't want to stop. Tai tai kimera oranika oranika hene no ai. Hene no ai. Hene no ai. I love that. I love it. Okay, it's time for community sharing. So let me see you raise your hand either in the reactions area or the participant area. I see a couple hands up, and if you don't, let me put this on gallery. If you can't do that hands up electronically, just wave around and I'll call on you. Oh, let's hear from Rachel Rose Lucky.
Actually, Craig had his hand up first.
I know, I don't always go in order.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll get
All
his
right.
turn.
Hi, Gloria. It's such a pleasure to meet you in this way, hopefully, one day we'll get to meet in person. As most of the group here knows, I'm Wiccan. I'm a pagan. And as such, in my spirituality, I have a tendency to pull from whatever spiritual paths are available to me and come across my way. And I've always had a great affinity towards the spirituality and the spiritual practices of natives. And so as a white person, though, I am cognizant of appropriations, and I don't want to do anything or say anything or that would be offensive or disrespectful. I always want to be respectful. So I wondered if you had any thoughts on that, because I have ever since I was a kid, people will say, well, do you have a little bit of American Indian in you? And because you have high cheekbones, and I've been told by my father that you definitely probably don't have any blood, but in talking about the quantum, the bloodline and things like that. I also know that back in the day, tribes would ingratiate and bring others into their tribes. And so I was just wondering how all of that kind of works together because the native philosophies of how we revere Mother Earth and all of that as Earth warriors. I really, I want to be able to move forward with this kind of idea, particularly as a potential elected official, without, with being respectful, to the heritage. So I don't know if any of that makes sense, but there's a question in there somewhere.
Okay. Well, yes, and I think it's very, very much an individual feeling. I know that with the people that I'm very involved with the Chumash people, of course, being here in Santa Barbara, but we have a number of people who aren't native, who are very much part of our community. Our community is right now, the part of the Chumash folks that I am with, pretty much revolve around the water and our tomo, our canoes. And there's a number of people, even people who paddle and who go over to the islands with us, who are not native. And I think that if someone would get up and want to do, for example, the sage, might offend some people, but just most of I think we as Native people would hope that everybody that would honor the earth. And one of the things that's very interesting that people don't seem to understand is that there isn't a Native American religion or a time where we are just like going to church on Sunday. It's how we live every day. It's a part of our lives. It's the way we see how we see Mother. And part of that is how we see Mother Earth and how we know that everything is like the song you sang today, everything, the earth and the stars and the animals, the trees, they are really our relatives. We're just part of that circle. And so I think if you're just careful about not, some people want to start wearing what they think tend to be native. That's offensive, but just following in the things that we believe what we hope everyone believes. So if just as long as you're careful about some things like the burning of the sage and putting yourself out as you're doing it in a ceremonial way, that might be offensive.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Craig Ali.
Thank you very much, Gloria. If you could respond to the best of your ability, there's something that I've noticed. Um, just over a month ago, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. And like the Kansas City Chiefs, they'll even admit chant. And what that chant is a Seminole War chant. And we talked about, or was mentioned earlier, the Seminoles and their whole thing on land. And I may be incorrect in this, but I believe at some point Florida was considered a Seminole state. Its nickname was the Seminole State. And the reason why I bring this up is that when this chant gets evolved, it brings back the Seminoles, and it brings back specifically the struggle of the Seminoles, more namely Billy Bowlegs. And I'm almost certain when they invoke, this chant, I'm sure they're not aware of what Billy Bowlegs was dealing with and how he more or less maneuvered to keep the people, his people, Florida to the Seminoles was like the Tongvaha is to, Santa Monica. And so I'm wondering if enough is being done to address that, with people who more or less evoke this, because that doesn't seem to be going away. That whole issue of, the chant and sports. Is enough being done, to make a serious assessment of what that means, what they went through, and the struggle that continues within that?
Well, I'm not sure what can be done because people are very insensitive to it. The people that I worked with in Carpinteria about our mascots just didn't get it. They just didn't get it. And I would find using a Seminole chant as a football thing is, we then don't know how it was actually used in their ceremony. And anything where we take ceremony and use it as part of a football game is offensive to me. And I just don't know what else can be done. But it's slowly is the message is getting across, because slowly that using Native as mascots has stopped. Although I would have to tell you that was not a football game I was excited about having to watch the Braves.
Okay, Judy Abdo.
Gloria, it's really good to see you. I don't think I've ever said this at the church, but my family believed, and I firmly believed growing up, that we were part Cherokee. And it was just a known fact within our family. Until I went to Ancestry and had my analysis of DNA, and I have absolutely no Native American anything in my DNA, and that, and it was like a part of me had been taken away because it was just a family belief, and I haven't even talked to all of our family about it. And I don't know whether it was that important to everybody, but it certainly was to me. And I just, what you said kind of triggered that for me, about how much blood is it still feels like a loss.
Yes, I'm sure it does. But it isn't, the important thing isn't that you were sort of raised with this idea of being part Native, but that you were raised with those values. and you're not going to lose those values. You know, that's not something you lose. You might have lost the notion that you're part of the blood, but you can always hold on to the values.
That's true. It's probably why I do a lot of the work that I do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Let's hear from Gil Lieb.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just wanted to mention that there is some progress in the area of erasing some of these symbols. I'm from Cleveland, and the Cleveland Indians and the symbol of this Chief Wahoo, and they have eliminated the symbol of the Indian Chief Wahoo, and for 2 years have been going through a soul searching process where they're eliminating the name, and they had a contest to come up with a new name. And there is a bridge in Cleveland which has some sculpture called the Guardians, and they're going to call themselves the Cleveland Guardians.
Oh.
And so this is a major step forward for Cleveland anyway. And I too find offensive the Atlanta Braves, the tomahawk chomp, the chant, the name, everything. It's really very offensive. And but also the Washington Redskins. Now, the owner of that team, who is a real racist, refused to ever change the name, said he would never do it. And of course, they're now called just the Washington team. They were forced to do it. So there is some progress being made in this area.
Yes, there is.
Okay, how about Jean Gasca?
I just have a quick question for Gloria. You said that when you were a child, you were encouraged not to say that you were Indian or Native. What message are you giving the young people today as a teacher and as an advocate?
To keep saying it, to be proud of it, to shout it from the nearest mountain. It's something to be proud of. And they do, believe me, they do. Everyone in town knows who our Chumash children are.
Oh. What kinds of opportunities do they have to like study the language or dancing?
Oh, it's amazing to me. We have some people that actually come up from LA because our language, you know, the Chumash language and the Tongan language were taken away completely. But there's a family that's so incredible. This woman, Deborah Sanchez, is from that, I guess, around Long Beach area. And she's a Superior Court judge. And she just had the moosh, the native tattoos put on. And she goes in her robe and sits and is a judge and is proud of that. And that certainly helped our young ones. But our young people, the young kids, are using all of the language. They all have been studying it. And it's so much fun. They come over to my house often because I have a fire pit and they love to sing and I love to sing. And you should have heard them last time they were there. They were arguing over what Chumash word that they should use in one of the songs, and had they been taught it the right way. And now they're writing their own music. And the other day we had a Chumash Maritime Association meeting and put 2 of the young people on the board. So they're definitely stepping up.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Please, you're on mute.
Chris Chappell.
Hi, Chris Chappell.
Hi, Gloria. Thanks again for being here and standing up. And I wanted to talk about these letters DEI. And in so many ways, what you said earlier about hospitality is so much part of the tradition. And I'll just tell a little story of my own dad, whose father had died. And my father was on the lacrosse team at University of Toronto in the 1920s. Was so amazed by the Ojibwe prowess that he was invited for the summer to live with the Ojibwe peoples on Bruce Peninsula, and was in so many ways just educated within the ways of that tribe. And he communicated to us so many things, like how to sit, how to walk without making noise, And when I think of the simplicity of those gifts, but the profound way of viewing the world, as you said before, what we can do is cherish what we know is the right way to live. That I really appreciated your response, because there's also a long tradition, and I grew up in the Haudenosaunee lands of the Seneca peoples, and various people I knew actually went to reservation and did a blood exchange and were adopted into the tribe. And this was not uncommon. If you remember the movie Dances with Wolves, I mean, this is well documented. So many white people went and became indigenous, and when given the opportunity to return, they said no. Judy, lift up yourself. And I was so happy to hear what you said about the young people carrying this work forward. Thank you.
Okay, Maureen.
Hi, Gloria and everyone. I'm just imagining just the benefit of your presence as an elder for the youth in your community. It's quite moving. I know you've told me other stories about it. Gloria invited me because she knew I was quite a fan of the native scientist, Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote a book called Breeding Sweetgrass, and Robin was speaking at UC Santa Barbara on Zoom, but Gloria invited me to that, and someone asked a question there, almost exactly like Rachel Rose's, you know, of I care about the earth, but I don't want to appropriate native practices. And he was so clear, and like you, Gloria, just affirming that love and that respect. And then she said, I just won't ever forget it because I've been trying to make this part of my life, but she said, love the earth your way. Show your gratitude to the earth your way, and grieve the harm that's been done your way. And it's a real call to both connect and be creative about what that means for each of us. And perhaps we can even do that in community as well. And the last thing I wanted to ask is, you know, just to, you know us all here, Gloria, if there's any way we can like write letters, you know, help in your advocacy work, or any advice you have of how to be, most of us non-native, as far as I know, advocates for Native communities, please let us know.
I will, and I would encourage you to get to know some of the Tongva people down there. They're a very exciting and wonderful group. But again, you know, the California tribes are different than like some of the Eastern tribes and Plains tribes. We're not a big tribe. We have bands, even within the Chumash, there are 5 or 6 different bands. And the same thing with the Tongva, that one little band of people is not the whole Tongva group. And I know in the Tongva and in the Chumash, there's some very traditional bands built around, and some built around the missions, and others of us who don't want anything to do with the missions. And I think that one of the things that I think is beautiful about the Native traditions is this connection between the elders and the young people, particularly with the teenage kids. It's a time when they're having such a hard time, and they're having a hard time communicating with their parents, but they're fine with us. And so we find that a group of teenagers and elders just naturally fit together. I don't know exactly where that comes from, but it's something that's very real. And I have very close friends among those teenagers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hurley Jim.
Thank you. Hi, Gloria. Our lives have been intertwined a lot.
Yeah.
I, have fond memories of camping with Tim and Audrey and much more. You know, Catalina, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Exploring a cave with Tim out there, and but and the Tomos and the others. You know, actually seeing those out at Catalina, and you know, just being amazed. Oh wow, yeah, you know, came all the way across that channel. That thing really works. But yeah, I guess, you know, there's so much. I want to try to keep focused here, and just you are, you know, are definitely a valued and loved elder in our community, and I'm so glad for what you brought us this morning, but what you bring us all the time when you're here. You know, sometimes it's a little pieces, sometimes it's just your presence. But want to thank you for that, and for what you said about your values. Nothing can take your value. Other people who've thought that they had, you know, native or indigenous ancestry, and then discovering, you know, something different, or actually not maybe. But I was with a guy, some of you have known him, Harvey Jackins, up in with some bands in Canada. And one of the things he told me was to be accepted with the people here, you have to, they have to see you as a good white guy. You know, no matter what you might think or what we might think, you know, about our backgrounds, they have to see that. They have to see you as a white guy who lives the values and loves the land and Mother Earth, and that, you know, is what's most important. So thank you. Thanks for all you brought us.
Let's see. I believe that's all the time we have for sharing. Thank you, everybody. And Gloria, thank you. Kim?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. This has been so rich. So thank you, everybody. So let's just take a breath and a stretch if you need it. Move your neck a little bit just to
Stretch your hands.
Yes. And just a very simple song of gratitude. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. I just want to thank you, friends. Sing that. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. I just want to thank you, friends. And then I grew up in church and we would sing it like this. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. I just want to thank you, God. You've been so good. You've been so good. You've been so good. You've been so good. I just want to thank you, God. Thank you, friends. Thank you, friends. Thank Thank you. I just want to thank you, friends.
Thank you, Kim.